Okay, so now that we have gotten All for One's entire backstory, Bakugo getting one of the greatest, not only wins, but also one of the greatest turning points of his character arc. And just the pure spectacle of this episode is that obviously it looks beautiful. Everything that is done throughout this episode, it is such peak animation. I just can't really say anything else on that aspect. So yes, 10 out of 10 with that. Now, for All for One, his entire birth and how he's been a greedy little piece of shenanigans. He definitely embodies the All for One thing. As a kid, he is a menace. He wiped out people indiscriminately, and it's just basically because they're not paying attention to me. Okay, die. And that is so absurdly petty that honestly, if it's within character, and having his younger brother that seemingly is weak because all the nutritions All for One took when they were kids. Like, All for One is All for One. He is the one that takes everything for himself. And the whole comic book aspect is interesting. Like, going back to an era when quirks were just coming out, I find that fascinating. It almost feels like you could literally make an entire prequel series revolving around that era. But that's getting ahead of myself. I think that All for One and Yoichi having like this different ideology kind of thing, because Yoichi has been constantly locked, pushed away from the world, so all he had was the comic books, because he can't really read any hard books, as he would say. And having him share it with All for One, and All for One obviously being jealous, like, what are you reading? And then once getting explained, he goes and reads them, because his younger brother definitely wants to see the good in his, well, big brother. But All for One misinterpret what he got. Like, the whole point of comic books, which is more for sure like the old classic stuff when that came out in our time as well, is that they're supposed to inspire hope. Like, yes, the villains are doing this, they're able to do this stuff, but the hero is there to stop them from completing their plan, from ruling over the world, from completely destroying the world, from doing something evil. The hero is there to stop it. But All for One took it as, I want to become the Demon Lord. I want to be the ruler. And we get to see his progression, how he stole the quirk of the glowing child. Like, the glowing child took all of the attention, and he's so petty that he just killed him and took his quirk. And just watching him just take quirk after quirk, murdering people, is insane. And then we get the other All for One users, how they saved Yoichi, like when he was locked out. They tried to get him out of there, and because All for One was so annoyingly petty and said, alright, well, if you don't want to be with me, then no one can have you, and just outright killed him. And the fact that his eyes don't reflect anything, it just shows he is not savable. Like, he is just not savable. Most people have said the eyes are a reflection of your soul, and his soul is so corrupt you can't even see it. It is just there. It is a plain as day. He is evil for the sake of being evil. Now, I get it, there are some people that won't like this because they want All for One to be a little bit more than just he's the evil bad guy. But going back to the whole comic book thing, that is what it is. Bad guys are just bad guys for the sake of it. They didn't have an actual big motive. So I'm fine with All for One just being a complete evil douchebag who, I guess his quirk really did embodied what he would become. Someone who just wants to take everything for himself. And because his brother wouldn't have... The only reason he kept his brother alive is only because it's just, he's a part of him. They're related by blood. So it's more like I have to do it because you just happen to be my brother, so I guess you work for me. I suppose an example we could give is Doflamingo from One Piece. How he basically had his brother Corazon join them even though they've been separated like for so long and could be obviously against him. And it's because, well, they're brothers, they're related by blood, so they're basically tied to each other in a sense. That's why I'm kind of getting the vibes here that All for One, like, he clearly has some twisted care for his brother. He even gave him a quirk because he assumed that his brother didn't have a quirk. But it's interesting that after, like, he is killed and then we have the second user and the third user, kind of talk about, oh, you have another quirk with you, it's because Yoichi's quirk never really evolved or couldn't because of the malnourishment. It wasn't enough to actually evolve into something. So, once that is obviously discovered, and even All For One realizes that, well, his brother had a quirk, he goes and hunts him down, because it does kind of, I guess, show he was able to realize that so long as I have my brother's quirk with me, he'll never leave my side. Well, he can't, because I commanded to. And we get to see how he wiped out all of the one-for-all users, or except one. Because if you recall, Danger Sense, if I'm not mistaken, was the only one who wasn't killed because he was so cautious that he kind of secluded himself to such a point that he died. He died not by All For One, but because the body cannot handle two quirks out at the same time. It causes it to die early. So that was how they realized that, because the whole Deku being one of the rare ones along with All Might how were quirkless, they basically were capable of handling one for all because they didn't have a quirk. And now that they do, their body can kind of handle it without dying prematurely. That is also a problem because quirkless people are obviously, they're not a lot of them. They're becoming eventually extinct per se. So it was a little interesting just watching how he wiped out every single one of them that he did encounter just to find his brother. And to have Bakugo be essentially the thing that finally caused them to get mad at the second quirk user, Kudo, because Kudo freed his brother and got like the whole one for all thing to start. So he blames him the most. And yes, just watching him just wipe everyone out and stuff obviously is intense as hell. And watching All Might land that hit on his face and how he was somewhat defeated by that after he landed a hit on All Might is amazing. It just makes me want to see All Might versus All For One, like their very first fight, because it is just probably something epic. And then the whole thing with Bakugo just using his sweats to essentially store the explosive sweats. So it's kind of a weird little thing how he was able to effectively push back All For One, because All For One was about to go for one final chance. He wants to kill All Might, but it's like, no, I gotta get to Shigaraki. My other self in there failed, and if I don't get it, I'm screwed. So he gambled on one final thing to push himself over there, which even the One For All vestiges sensed that something was coming. So if Bakugo hadn't done anything, yeah, things would have been very All For One-esque. And yeah, Bakugo kind of showed himself that he is capable of fighting, that he's going to fight with everything he's got. And he got the information from All Might that you need to damage him so he can keep reversing in terms of age until he finally just basically unalives himself through just de-aging to such a point where he doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, Bakugo is able to land so many crazy hits, able to go crazy with his explosions, and obviously the animation is just purely amazing. And I love that Bakugo kind of in this entire end of the fight acknowledges something. He alone cannot beat All For One. Like, if this was a genuine fight that wasn't that condition that the damage makes him de-age, he probably would have lost. Because despite how strong Bakugo is, he doesn't have the necessary firepower to win. Even he acknowledges that he couldn't win on his own. And I love the homage to Season 3 when All Might landed his United States of Smash, and how similar it looks here, with Bakugo just saying that, getting mad at like All For One being like, this is my story. It's like, no, this is our story, and just sending him to the ground and essentially nearly wiping him out. And obviously, Bakugo lands, he's on his feet, and he almost collapses in front of a baby All For One. And he almost loses his ground, and then remembers something he said, gets his bearings again, and basically says, I haven't won until I have won. Essentially saying, it's not done until All For One is actually dead. Once he's dead, then I'm done. And yeah, Baby All For One, frustrated, pissed off, tries one more thing, and it fails. And yeah, obviously, Baby All For One just obviously kaputs, angrily just shouting, I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. Essentially, he kind of just mentally reversed. Like, he genuinely just could not handle it. Like, here's what I think. I think because he could start getting younger, his emotions start kind of going all over the place. You know, teenagers with how kids, how their emotions are, and it started getting the best of him. This is something that Hawks even mentioned whenever All For One tried to check inside his own vestige world. And I do like Hawks. He's just obviously still chilling no matter where he is. And yeah, All For One was done for. Like, he genuinely at that moment when he finally could not kill Bakugo and essentially used up every little bit of power, that was it. Like, that was just it. He reverted so far back that he was no longer existing at this point. And yeah, Hawks mentioning, oh, everyone's going back to their original users, but then backtracking like not. Like, that's wishful thinking. And Bakugo, after all of this, tried to stand like how All Might stood at Kamino. And unfortunately, he couldn't. He just collapsed. Because his body just could not stand anymore. But it was still a badass moment of Bakugo. I won't deny it. And how he's basically like, alright, it's up to you, Izuku. Like, it's all up to you. So, Bakugo's come full circle. Beginning of the series, he was a cocky little prick who basically said that he'll surpass All Might. That he is the only one who can win. To this point where, yes, he did win, but he acknowledged that he won because he got help from others. That without the others, he would not have won this fight. And it took everyone to stop All For One. Now, I have my thoughts on All For One losing here, but that are All For One as a whole. But he mentioned something that his counterpart could not trigger the trap card. That is going to come into play at some point, because you don't just say shit like that without, Chekhov's gun kind of thing. So we will get to that when we get to that. But this episode alone, 10 out of 10, blows it out of the water. It was essentially the All Might level of respect that I gotta give Bakugo, because he held his ground.